On the 6th of June, 2023, security footage captured 31-year-old Kristel Candelario as she left her home on Lorain Avenue near West 97th Street in Cleveland. She loaded a suitcase into her car and then drove off. Kristel was headed off on a 10-day summer vacation, leaving her 16-month-old daughter, Jailyn, alone in their home. The little girl was left confined to a playpen with only a few bottles of milk to sustain her. Kristel, meanwhile, was bound for the beaches of Puerto Rico, travelling with a male friend. A few days later, at around 1 a.m. on the 9th of June 2023, a neighbour's doorbell camera later captured Jailyn's cries echoing through the quiet neighbourhood. After days spent in the sun and sand, with a final stop in Detroit, Kristel returned on the 16th of June 2023, arriving home at exactly 7:36 a.m. Only 11 minutes after stepping inside, she dialed 911, hysterically shouting,
"I need big money! Big money!" What's happening? What's your name? Kristel Candelario, please tell me. She don't respond. She's quiet. She's quiet. You can't hear her. That's big money. I can speak English. I understand you. Tell me who's right. Who's right? Please. Your mom? Is that your mom? I have mom. Yeah. I have mom. Do you live here? I don't even know it. I'm going to get you over in my home. Oh my goodness.
But it was too late. Little baby Jailyn was dead.
Then 31-year-old Kristel Candelario vacationing in Puerto Rico, while her 16-month-old daughter Jailyn was trapped in a pack-and-play with her feces for 10 days, starving to death.
This baby loved her mother, she needed her mother, and her mother betrayed her.
Before emergency responders arrived, Kristel quickly dressed Jailyn in a clean outfit. When they entered, the scene was grim. 16-month-old Jailyn lay lifeless on a mattress inside a pack-and-play, surrounded by filth. The playpen reeked of urine and feces, with dirty blankets piled around her. Her small body showed the unmistakable signs of neglect. She was severely dehydrated and emaciated, with sunken eyes, cracked lips, and traces of fecal matter in her mouth and under her fingernails. Heartbreakingly, paramedics could do nothing, and Jailyn was pronounced dead on the spot. During an interview with Cleveland detectives in her living room, Kristel claimed she had been home all week. She insisted that Jailyn had been sick, mentioning vomiting and a poor appetite over the last few days.
So, but in the last week, she get a vomiting too. Remember right now you mentioned the vomiting. She get a vomiting the last week, Monday and Tuesday, two times. But I was trying controlling because I know I give to her Tylenol or something, for controlling the vomiting.
Okay.
And
come on inside.
Last night she was crying a lot, and I see one moment when I was take a shower, and she was screaming like I don't know, probably she get a pain.
Okay.
Maybe.
Kristel claimed that when she woke that morning, she discovered Jailyn unresponsive.
I took her in the morning for Jailyn, wake up, and she wake up, and when I see her, I see she looks like a really, really dry, like a, ¿cómo se dice cuando una persona se chupa, o sea, se...
Kind of like...
Yes.
Kind of like like her face was sunken in?
So, yeah. Y ahí fue que yo me asusté y dije, yes, and
what
she
time
was like a purple. I said, oh my God.
And that was what time this morning?
In this morning, when I called to emergency, I don't remember the exact time, but maybe 8 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the fresh clothes could not disguise the horrific evidence, nor could Kristel's story explain away the suffering her daughter had endured. The reality of the little 16-month-old's final days began to reveal the painful truths behind her mother's lies. Investigators combed through more than 600 hours of doorbell and traffic camera footage, tracking Kristel's movements in and out of her Cleveland home between the 4th of June and the 16th of June, 2023. Her vehicle was seen leaving and returning several times, but never with her young daughter Jailyn. On the 4th of June, Kristel left her home without Jailyn, staying away for 2 days before briefly returning on the 6th of June. That evening, she was captured on video loading a suitcase into her car before departing once more, not to return until the 16th of June. As investigators traced Kristel's movements, a troubling timeline emerged. On the 6th of June, she drove to Detroit to stay with a man for a few days. From there, she took a Spirit Airlines flight to Puerto Rico on the 8th of June, where she enjoyed a beach vacation, returning to Michigan on the 11th of June to stay with a second man. She then remained in Michigan until her final return to Cleveland on the 16th of June. While in Puerto Rico, Kristel posted a photo to Facebook, smiling on the beach, captioning it, "The time that is enjoyed is the true time lived." Jailyn's remains were sent to the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office for a full autopsy. Dr. Elizabeth Mooney, the forensic pathologist assigned to the case, conducted the examination. Her conclusion was heartbreaking, saying, "The child had been left alone and unattended for approximately 10 days and subsequently died." Dr. Mooney described the grim details of Jailyn's final days. Her tiny hands, the bottoms of her feet, and even her teeth were caked with feces, evidence that, in desperation, she had tried to eat her own waste to survive. Jailyn's body showed clear signs of severe dehydration, which had led to kidney failure. Based on the level of decomposition and the physical state of her body, Dr. Mooney estimated that Jailyn had likely died 2 or 3 days before she was found, meaning she had endured nearly a week alone in her playpen. When her body arrived at the medical examiner's office, she weighed just 13 pounds. She had lost over 7 pounds since her last doctor's appointment, less than 2 months earlier. Despite statements from children and family services officials that there were no prior records of cases involving Kristel, neighbours reported that this was not the first time she had left Jailyn home alone. One neighbour said,
"We keep telling her not to leave her by herself. Not only me, my friend across the street too. But she always be here by herself."
It wasn't really her mom that was taking care of her. It was her grandma that was mostly taking care of her. Her mom always wanted to go out and just left her with her grandma and all that.
In one instance, Kristel asked a neighbour to babysit Jailyn for the weekend, but days turned into weeks, and Kristel didn't answer her phone. When she did answer, she made excuses for not returning. The neighbour said, "I was the one calling her saying, 'Look, I need milk. I need money. I don't have money to buy milk for your baby. What am I supposed to do?' In the end, Kristel did not return for 6 weeks, and by that point, Jailyn had begun calling the neighbour Mama. Citizens Academy, Glenville, where Kristel worked as an instructional aide, released a statement regarding the incident. Based on recent reports regarding charges brought against Kristel Candelario, a building substitute at Citizens Academy Glenville, since November of 2022, we have terminated her employment, effective immediately. We are conducting an internal review to determine if there were any complaints of improper conduct during her tenure at Breakthrough Public Schools. As public servants and educators, our top priority remains fostering safe learning environments for our scholars and community. We join all of Cleveland in grieving this terrible loss. Finally, authorities charged Kristel with murder, with prosecutors indicating they reserved the right to pursue the death penalty. While in police custody, she was interviewed once more, but her lies continued to unfold.
You gotta to Detroit, Michigan. You don't know what city, you don't know what hotel. You gotta come out with something better than that.
No, pero el hotel de donde él se estaba quedando, Superman.
Where you were staying, not David, where you were staying. We're not talking about David.
Superman, that's it.
Super 8?
Yeah.
Alright, so you arrived at 2 hours later, you said it's Super 8, you mentioned something about Uber.
Yo estaba trabajando en Uber, sí.
She was working Uber. Why would you go work Uber in Detroit, Michigan,
Porque me
instead of doing it here in Cleveland,
Sí, porque
where your daughter is?
yo también trabajaba aquí en Uber, aquí
aquí en Cleveland. Okay, but why go over there? It's not too here. Why not do it here? Your daughter is here.
Porque me iba a ver a mis padres también en Michigan, entonces aproveché.
Friends over there in Michigan, so she took advantage of the fact that she was over there, so that's a big bunch she worked over there.
Pero no era siempre, pero así.
But not always. That's not, she didn't do that always.
Don't take this the wrong way. At what point did you think that it would make sense to leave her here on your future?
Por pasear, to travel. Por pasear,
Why not travel with you?
¿Por qué no llevaste a ella contigo?
porque yo pensaba regresar el viernes y ya quedarme con ella. O sea, era algo rápido, eventual, que no.
She said it because she had planned on returning on Friday and spending time with them, so
Porque no me iba a quedar en la casa de nadie.
she wasn't going to stay in anybody's house.
But why not take with you if you already knew that she had a condition going on at the time?
Si tú sabías que ella tenía una condición y estaba enfermita,
She needed
¿por qué no llevarla contigo?
Porque por eso mismo, por yo pasear, por
She wanted to have a good time and travel.
She was held in the Cuyahoga County Jail on a $1 million bond as she awaited trial. On the 22nd of February, 2024, Kristel Candelario pleaded guilty to 1 count of aggravated murder and 1 count of child endangerment as part of a plea deal that left her facing a maximum sentence of life imprisonment without parole. In exchange, prosecutors agreed to dismiss a related charge of felonious assault. Assistant Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Anna Farelia told the court,
"The thought of this child dying every day while she's having fun, humanity can't stomach that. And those are the actions that need to be punished. She abandoned her daughter and left her for dead."
During the trial, prosecutors presented the security footage showing Kristel leaving her house multiple times between the 4th and 6th of June, loading her suitcase into a car on the 6th of June, and finally returning home on the 16th of June. They also played heartbreaking recordings captured by a neighbour's camera during those days, which picked up the sound of Jailyn crying and screaming. The prosecution played Kristel's 911 call, made just minutes after her return, in which she reported finding her daughter unresponsive. Prosecutor Anna Farelia argued that Kristel had the presence of mind to change Jailyn's clothes and fabricate a cover story for the police after finding her daughter's lifeless body. Prosecutor Anna Farelia also referenced recorded phone calls Kristel made from jail in November and January, in which she reminisced about the blast she had during her trip to Puerto Rico. In another call with her mother, Kristel downplayed her actions, comparing herself to others in prison for murder and insisting that Jailyn's death had been an accident. Prosecutor Anna Farelia quoted Kristel saying, "It's not like I did it intentionally. It's not like I picked up a gun or bat or the girl bled." Kristel's defense attorney, Derek Smith, acknowledged to the court that her actions were inexcusable. He explained that she had been struggling emotionally and felt overwhelmed as a single mother of 2. Kristel's older 7-year-old daughter was with her grandparents in Ecuador when Kristel left Jailyn alone. Derek Smith described her behavior as narcissistic, selfish, abhorrent, and absolutely the worst parenting imaginable. He also revealed that in 2023, Kristel had attempted to harm herself and was subsequently treated for depression after she arrived at Hillcrest Hospital with numbness on one side of her body. Initially suspected to be a stroke, doctors later determined her symptoms were a side effect of severe anxiety and stress. Following this, Kristel was prescribed multiple medications, which she continued to take until she claimed to have run out of them shortly before her trip. Derek Smith argued that she abruptly stopped the medications without gradually tapering down the dosage, which can cause side effects. He suggested that this sudden withdrawal contributed to her impaired judgment, stating that she was not thinking clearly. He said, "You can't tell what a person is dealing with on the inside." She was hiding her depression from herself, from her parents. She couldn't articulate her own state of mind during that time, which is alarming. Not only was she on a couple of different antidepressants, but she stopped taking them. So that in amongst itself is an issue. Derek Smith said his client suffered from depression. He said, "Unfortunately, it is not an easy diagnosis. It is not something that can be easily recognized from the outside. You don't know what a person is dealing with internally." She took responsibility. She's very remorseful. A day doesn't go by that she doesn't think about her daughter. Depression can make you do things you normally wouldn't do, and unfortunately, it caused a lot of problems for her, and now her daughter is not with us anymore. In response to the 911 call, in which Kristel pleaded for help hysterically, Derek Smith argued that it demonstrated how Kristel truly felt about her daughter's death.
She didn't want this to happen. You could hear that. Screaming, "Help me, my daughter's dying."
In response, prosecuting attorney Anna Farelia urged the judge to disregard Kristel's claims of diminished mental capacity. She pointed to pictures from Kristel's phone that showed her smiling on the beach and posing with friends, highlighting the contrast between her outward demeanor and the gravity of the situation. Prosecuting attorney Anna Farelia said, "Her actions speak louder than words. She had the wherewithal to leave Cuyahoga County to be alone with not one but two men and leave her own child alone in a pack and play."
She was a mother. She got a title that means something in this world.
Kristel Candelario's sentencing took place at the Cuyahoga County Justice Center on the 18th of March, 2024 at 9 a.m. The hearing included emotional testimony from several individuals involved in the investigation into Jailyn's death. Forensic pathologist Dr. Elizabeth Mooney, the medical examiner who performed the autopsy, described her death as one of the most tragic and unfortunate cases of her career. Dr. Mooney explained to the Cleveland courtroom that children experience the most extreme separation anxiety between the ages of 9 and 18 months. She then recounted Jailyn's excruciating final days, describing the heartbreaking details of the toddler's suffering. She said,
"In the absence of more advanced decompositional changes, I believe that the pain and suffering she endured lasted not only hours, not days, but possibly even a week. This is a pain that comes from an extreme thirst and hunger. It also stems from an inherent terror of isolation, or the lack of someone present to provide that. This feeling of abandonment for days on end, coupled with the pain of starvation and extreme thirst, is a type of suffering I don't think any of us could ever fully fathom."
Dr. Mooney continued, describing Jailyn's eyes as sunken, with noticeable temporal wasting in her face. She also noted that the toddler had an abundance of fecal matter on her hands, feet, and in her mouth, caked onto her teeth, indicating that Jailyn had ingested her own waste in a desperate attempt to survive. Cleveland Police Sergeant Teresa Gomez fought back tears as she described Jailyn's condition, calling the circumstances of the case beyond horrific. She said,
"This tragedy should have never happened. I am Sergeant Gomez from the Homicide Unit. The entire Homicide Unit, Cleveland Homicide Initiative, and our partners from the FBI are here today in honor of baby Jailyn Candelario. When we were first notified of this horrific case, we were all heartbroken. But when we started digging deeper into the investigation, it was beyond horrific. It was revealed that the defendant, Kristel Candelario, left her own child alone for hours, which led to days, which led to weeks. The 16-month-old baby was left alone in a pack and play to fend for herself for 11 days with no food, maybe milk, the clothing she had on, and the diaper she was wearing."
Sergeant Gomez continued by saying, Jailyn died a long and agonizing death, afraid and alone, while her mother enjoyed the beach and sunshine. This is a case that myself, all the people behind me, and everyone around the world will have branded in our hearts and in our minds forever. Many of us are tormented by thoughts of what Jailyn suffered and what her last hours were like. We would have jumped at the opportunity to help her. Lead Detective T.J. Powell said Jailyn will never be forgotten, and he wrote a poem in her memory.
"I wrote a short poem, just something in commemoration of Jailyn's life. J is for the justice that'll be received today. A is for the angel wings she earned on that joyful day. I is for the incremental repetition, build up of suspense for an innocent bystander's death that clearly makes no sense. L is for the lack of love while alone for 11 days. Y is for a young life that was taken away. N is for new eternal life Jailyn gained on that day. No child should ever have to die this way. Jailyn's life truly mattered. Unfortunately, she died trying to survive off of her own urine and fecal matter.
Kristel's parents spoke in her defense, attributing her actions to mental health struggles and pleading with the judge for mercy. Her mother, Ketty Torres, shared that Kristel had long battled health issues, including mental illness and fainting spells. She explained that when her daughter stopped taking her medication, it worsened her depression and anxiety, ultimately contributing to her inability to make sound decisions. Her mother said, "My heart is ripped apart in 1,000 pieces. I am here to tell the world that my daughter came from a home where there were values, beliefs, emotions, warmth, where the most important thing was family. I want to say here, Jailyn, our angel, your memory lives within us. We will always love you." She then addressed her daughter directly and pledged to stand by her, saying, "I lament and I'm sorry for not having detected what you were going to be. I could not see your heart. I did not see the chaos that you were going through." Kristel Candelario also addressed Judge Brendan Sheehan directly, saying, "There's so much pain that I have in regards to the loss of my baby, Jailyn. I'm extremely hurt about everything that happened. I am not trying to justify my actions, but nobody knew how much I was suffering and what I was going through. Every day, I ask forgiveness from God and my daughter. God and my daughter have forgiven me. Not a day goes by when I do not think of her. I pray to God that one day I will see her again." In handing down the sentence, Judge Brendan Sheehan said,
"The bond between a mother and a child is one of the most purest and most sacred bonds between human beings. It's a relationship built on love, trust, and unwavering protection. Yet, in a shocking and betrayal of this fundamental trust, you committed the ultimate act of betrayal, leaving your baby terrified, alone, unprotected, to suffer what I heard was the most gruesome death imaginable, with no food, no water, no protection, and lying in her own feces. The evidence that I've witnessed here before this court shows that this time you simply chose not to be here because you wanted to have fun. You decided you needed a vacation, and what followed was absolute depravity. You left your baby, Jailyn, trapped in a pack and play without food and water for 10 days. Despite all of her suffering, that little baby persevered, waiting for someone to save her. And you could have done that with a simple phone call. Instead, I see photos of you on a beach while your child was eating her own feces, an attempt to survive.
Finally, the judge sentenced Kristel to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He said,
"You left your baby, Jailyn, trapped in a pack and play without food and water for 10 days. This wasn't simply an oversight. I'm going to sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Just as you didn't let Jailyn out of her confinement until she died, so too, you should spend the rest of your life in a cell without freedom. The only difference will be that prison will at least feed you and give you liquids that you denied her."
Following the sentencing, Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael C. O'Malley said, "Today, we remember Jailyn, a beautiful baby girl who was taken from this world due to her mother's unimaginable selfishness. The thought of going on vacation for 10 days and leaving your child to starve to death in her pack and play is a new low in parental care. This case is one of those truly unimaginable cases that will stick with me for many years to come. As prosecutors, it is our job to represent the victims, and today we spoke on behalf of 16-month-old Jailyn, who is no longer with us due to the selfish decisions her mother made. This conviction today is the first step towards justice for Jailyn." Cleveland Division of Police Chief Todd said, "Each and every homicide that occurs in our city is significant, but when it involves a child, it is even more devastating. One relief we have is knowing that members of our division, particularly our homicide unit, worked tirelessly to bring justice to Jailyn. We are committed to continuing our efforts to keep our community safe and prevent such senseless acts from occurring in our city. Kristel spoke with Noticias Telemundo from prison in Cleveland, Ohio. She said that her attorneys were working to have the court take her mental state into account in a future appeal of her case. When asked how a mother could abandon her baby daughter, leaving her unattended in a house for 10 days while going on vacation, she replied, "The answer is a bit difficult for the rest of the world to understand, and in particular for the people who question and point out that I have committed a diabolical act, as was mentioned in court. I gave my testimony. I took the blame for my actions. I was experiencing emotional stress." When asked about the reasons for her trip, Kristel said, "It was a decision that was actually made many months before. I was in the hospital in January and February 2023 because I had emotional and mental problems. On one of those 2 occasions, I wanted to make an attempt on my own life. For that reason, I was in the hospital without being able to walk for exactly almost 2 weeks. And in the month of March, my now ex-boyfriend and I wanted to take a vacation. During the trip, Kristel said she often thought about her daughter and the fact that she was alone. She said, "The people who accompanied me on the trip could see that I was very distracted, very angry. They told me, 'Kristel, what's happening? You're not yourself.' I never mentioned anything about my daughter." She admitted that for a few seconds, she considered calling a family member or neighbour to check on her daughter's well-being, but she didn't. Neighbours who lived along the street were heartbroken about Jailyn's death. One neighbour said, "We couldn't believe she was gone. Jailyn, she was a happy baby, always smiling, always curious about stuff. She was a wonderful, wonderful baby." A neighbour who often babysat Jailyn said,
When she was over here, she liked when we played with her. And we would put her on the bed, and I would go to where she couldn't see me, and then I would jump up and say boo, and she would go and jump, and she would start laughing as well. We were always playing with her. She was so gorgeous. And when they told us the state that they found her in, I was heartbroken. There were so many people here. She could have knocked on any of our doors and asked us to take care of Jailyn, and we all would have.
Kristel's actions were not just reckless, they were heartbreakingly selfish. While she relaxed on the beaches of Puerto Rico, her 16-month-old daughter was alone, scared and starving. Her trip wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was one made long before, as she put her own desires ahead of her daughter's basic need for love and safety. The thought of Kristel lounging by the beach, ordering drinks at the bar while her child lay at home dehydrated, is chilling. Mental health struggles are real, but they don't excuse the decision to abandon a helpless child. Kristel's choice to leave her daughter alone, even briefly considering calling someone to check on her, shows that she didn't care enough to act. It shows a disconnect so profound, it's almost unimaginable. Children deserve to be protected, nurtured, and loved, but not all parents deserve to have children. This is one of the most heinous and disgusting acts against a child I have ever seen. My heart breaks, knowing Jailyn was crying for the mother who had abandoned her, desperately needing food, comfort, and care. Instead, she was left to die from starvation in the most cruel and tragic way. As always, my heart goes out to everyone impacted by this awful crime, especially to Jailyn's loved ones. My thoughts are also with the dedicated individuals who worked on this case, who have said it was one of the darkest they had ever encountered. Rest in peace, Jailyn Candelario.